WCLN 1170 Radio and Cable Channel 16 are pleased to present We Should Know, hosted by JW Simmons, an upbeat, informative look at people, places, and issues facing our community. This education-based analysis of issues will remain positive and informative as we consider closely what we should know.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. We Should Know is on air. I want to thank you for being with us today. We're coming to you from Star Communications Cable Channel 16. We're also simulcast on WCLN Radio each and every week at 2:30, 7 p.m. replay on Channel 16 Star Communication. If you have questions or comments or suggestions, please reach us at weshouldknowedu@gmail.com, weshouldknowedu@gmail.com. Today we have two guests with us that we're pleased to have with the Department of Social Services, Carlina Simmons and of course Jane Dudley. Jane, you've been on before. Carlina is new. Carlina, I'm going to introduce you first. And one of the things that I saw in your bio was just, I want to say thank you to your family, 100 years of military service to this country. That is awesome. Carlina, now you're kind of heading up that department. I guess you refer to it as the foster care department at Social Services. And Jane, that's something you used to do some time ago. And in fact, I think the last conversation we had on this show, we were talking about foster care. But now you're in the world and supervising that area of aging. And both you guys are church people, family people. Jane, two children and very much involved and faith-based. I think you almost have to have a strong faith base for what you guys do. So big question, and I'll start with Carlina. Carlina, when I look at foster care and I think about foster care, especially this time of year, the Christmas season, sometimes I imagine myself in a place that I'm not familiar with, in a home that I don't recognize, with parents now that are not really parents, and my emotions almost take over. Tell us about foster care and what that world looks like from where you sit as the person supervising that.
Well, from where I sit, foster care is something that unfortunately is necessary. We have children who are living in situations that are very unsafe. And so it's our job to ensure the well-being of those children. And you're absolutely correct. Around this time of year, it is definitely difficult for the children. And it's also difficult for the parents. It's difficult to be away from your children, regardless of what you may have done that results in your child being in foster care. This is the time of year where families want to be together. So we have to keep in mind that not only is it difficult for the children, but it's also hard for the parents. So this time of year, we try to ensure that we're having extended visits with the parents, that we're making sure that the children are able to see their families, if at all possible, if there's nothing barring that. Thankfully, there are some parents who may have the opportunity to have unsupervised or overnight visits with their children, so we try to accommodate as much as we can. We do recognize that it's a difficult time for kids to be away from their parents. Some of them may be in foster homes away from siblings. So we do everything that we can to try to keep those connections. And that's another reason why Christmas cheer is so important for our agency, making sure that our children get those Christmas gifts, that they get what they want, that they have presents underneath the tree, and they're excited on Christmas morning. So it's very important, especially this time of year, that we show our children that they're loved.
Jane, I remember some time ago we talked about foster care, and at the time there was a super need for folks to step up and be foster care parents because there was such a short number. And I also recall in some of the notes, I remember what was disturbing was that there was even people from this area being shipped out of state because there was not enough foster care homes in North Carolina. Is that still the case?
I think at that time, and my history is with Child Protective Services, which is the step that before foster care comes into the picture. But we often were having to place children outside of this county, and that makes it difficult because We want children to be in their same school systems. We want them to continue with their same medical provider. We want them to be close to their church if they can still attend their own church. We want them to still be able to be in their own community. And it makes it hard when we don't have foster parents right here in this community, but that's changed. We have, or it is changing. There was a time when I think we had maybe 2 or 3 licensed foster parents years ago in this county. And how many children do we have in care?
We currently
Carlina?
have 109 children in care.
So, and that is a reduced number from years past. And so imagine placing the majority of those children out of our county in surrounding counties, in brand new school systems, brand new cities, with brand new churches, brand new medical providers, in a brand new home. And it makes it very difficult for them to adjust whenever you add on the reason why they're in foster care in the first place, the trauma that they've been through. So it's a blessing that we have dedicated social workers who are recruiting foster parents. And I think we've just had another family that's been licensed in the past month or so. And we are working diligently to have more and more foster parents licensed right here in our community.
I had a lady on, and I cannot remember her name, but she was a foster care person, and I don't know whether you were involved in that conversation, but it was one of the earlier shows that we had done, and she literally cried and it was so upsetting. I remember it at the time that I was looking some tissue or something, and we were just not prepared to that, and somebody reminded me that when that happened, what it meant to them viewing the show was the compassion and how much that meant to her, what she was doing.
And it does mean a lot to us. We have 40 plus social workers in our section who do a combination of child protective services, which is the investigatory piece of it, then foster care, and we have our adult services social workers. We didn't get into social work for the pay, for sure. We got into social work because there's something within each of us that wants to help others, wants to reach out to the community and make things better. And that doesn't just go away when the clock strikes 5 o'clock in the afternoon. We take all those things home. We absorb those things on a daily basis, and we depend on each other to process through those things. So yeah, I can imagine that whoever you were speaking with that day, it stays on the surface. It's not buried deep. It stays on the surface with us each day that goes by.
As we're talking, and I know folks listening to the show, oftentimes they'll be having questions. I've had folks say to me, I wish I could have asked them something, or I wish you had asked them something. And the obvious question here is going to be, if folks are listening and they feel like, well, maybe I've reached that point in life, I'm retired, I really don't have anything to do. Is that a good person that may be a foster home? What's the requirements? What are the kinds of things you guys look for when you're looking for, quote, that ideal foster care person? Or is there such a thing as that?
Well, we're looking for people who are willing to love these children just like their own. We're looking for a safe environment. We're looking for people who are committed to the success of these children. We are always recruiting for foster parents. At this point, we have 22 foster homes. We have a couple of families who are in training, and we're always looking, we're always seeking, especially for families who are willing to accept our older youth. A lot of times our older youth end up going to residential care facilities, also known as group homes. And it's just so vitally important to these children, especially when they start getting into the adolescent years, that they're with a family, that they have a family environment. So we're looking for people who love children, who are committed, and who are willing to work with the agency to ensure the success of our children.
You mentioned, I'm going to just slide this in right quick, the difference in group home and a foster care home. Is it a different dynamic? Is there more people or less people? Or?
Yes, so it is definitely a different dynamic. In a foster home, it's a home. You have a mother, you have a father, you may have other children in the home who will consider this foster child as a sibling, and they're able to sit down at the dinner table and have dinner engage in extracurricular activities, and it's the closest to a home-like setting as they can get without being with their biological family. When a youth goes to a group home, it is very, very different. They could be in a large home setting where they may be sharing a bedroom with someone. There are staff who work there 24 hours a day. But it's not the same. It's not the same as having a parental connection to someone.
So it sounds like that this is kind of a dynamic that is not only been going on for some time, this particular need of foster and group homes, but it sounds like it's a dynamic that is continuing to grow, and that need is going to, do you expect it to grow to the point that at some point in time we're going to be without the capacity to serve those children?
Hopefully not. The state is taking initiatives now to get away from group care for adolescents. But with that means that we need more licensed foster parents. We need more foster homes. So in order to get away from having as many youth in group homes, we definitely need more foster parents, and not just foster parents, but parents who are willing to take teenagers, because that's a different stage of life that is more difficult. It requires more energy, more time.
More patience.
Yes, more patience. And so, typically we have no issue with placing our younger children, but the teenagers are more difficult just because of everything that comes with parenting an adolescent.
I'm thinking people listening probably going to think, well, wonder if I could call these ladies and take my teenager and say, how about just keep them until they get out of these teenage years? Because that is Jane, that's a tough time that parents often talk about. And when we come back from break, I want to kind of give you guys a chance to kind of, without getting too deep in child psychology, maybe give folks some kind of pointers on how they need to navigate that, how they need to get through that, because just about everybody, and being a grandparent now, I've seen it kind of on both sides. So we're going to take a break. Ladies and gentlemen, we're talking with Jane Dudley and Carlina Simmons.
Experiencing slow internet? If you have a fast internet package, the problem is most likely your wireless router. With more devices using Wi-Fi, your wireless router may not be able to deliver the speed and coverage you need. We now have the leading solution to enhance your internet experience. Using small devices in a mesh network, these Wi-Fi appliances cover just about any size home so that all your devices can operate to their fullest potential. Whole home Wi-Fi from Star Communications. Get the most out of your internet connection.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. We Should Know is on there. I want to thank you for being with us today. We're talking to the folks with the Department of Social Services right here in Sampson County. We're talking with Jane Dudley, and we're talking with Carlina Simmons. And I have trouble with that last name for some reason, Carlina. I don't know what it is, but as we go into this conversation, we talked about children and we talked about foster care. This connection between the demand to do something for children and for the people that are listening to this show. And Jane, you've got years of experience as supervisor working with child care and that kind of thing. And Carlina, with what you're doing now, supervising that foster care area, what is it that people need to know? Let me stage this question in another way. What would you ask people to do to help you better do your job?
I would say just reach out to us. Just reach out. I know that it can be a very scary thought to bring a child into your home, to take the time that it entails to become licensed. But there is so much love in this community. We've already seen such a great outpouring with the Christmas Cheer program. And there are so many people who want to help. And I would say that just, call us, inquire. You can call me. My name is Carlina Simmons. We can definitely give you information about how you can become a foster parent. And you don't need much. Really, what you need is love. Just love in your heart. And that'll get you through what you need to do to be able to help a child and to be able to bless a family.
Jane, and both you ladies are church ladies, faith-based. Speak to it from the sense of churches. I mean, one of the wonderful things we've got in this area is steeples. I tell folks, if you just drive across the countryside, you're going to see 2 or 3 churches every so many miles. And steeples make a difference. Faith is a strong component of the rural landscape. What can churches do? Oftentimes you'll hear folks at different churches, they may say, you know, is there a family that we can support at Christmas? Is there a local need that we can give to? I mean, there's abundance worldwide. I mean, you can look at all kinds of organizations. What would you say to churches?
Practically the same thing Carlina just mentioned. Reach out to us, and we have had many churches to reach out to us this year, and every year. We've had gift cards donated. We've had monetary donations given to our Christmas cheer program. I'd like to mention a few of the donors that we've had. Olive Grove Church is one of our donors, and we appreciate what they have done for us this year and every year. We also have the Darden Family Farms has donated to us, and I can't mention all of them because we have over 30 donors, but I wanted to get some in. Star Communications is a donor that we have, we depend on each year, and we are grateful. Benjamin Warwick and family. And we also have St. Paul's Episcopal Church. So I've mentioned a few churches there, and that's what you're talking about, JW. But we had some gift cards donated for turkeys for Thanksgiving. Many families don't have, they're food needy, and they don't have enough. We take for granted that we're going to have a turkey at Thanksgiving, or we're going to have cranberry sauce and stuff, and some families do not have that. Some families in this community this year don't have enough to buy, keep the heat on, much less by Christmas for the children. So this program is very important, especially for our foster children and our adult wards. And we are just grateful each year when folks reach out to us and donate to this program.
So it's not, and again, I think it was interesting, just the few names you read out there. It's not just churches, but companies, businesses, individuals make donations, and it is a situation, again, to that idea of folks having even food on the table, and we make the assumption, and these are people that are right in the community. This is not something that is in another country or another part of the world. This is people that literally you may cross paths with, and you wouldn't know that, but you guys know it. So there, it's like you're the gateway. And if somebody's thinking about, well, what do I do for Christmas? Instead of agonizing over if you want to really do something good, reach out, write that check, make a donation, and you'll take care of it. They don't have to do the labor part.
And what we do is very confidential, and we're in a unique position where we're able to identify specific families, because that is what is brought to our attention each and every day. That's what we're doing. We're identifying families in need. And we're able to take those gifts and those donations and put them exactly where they need to go, right back in the community. Right down the road, people may not even realize that the donation that they are giving is going to benefit someone that's right down the road from them. And these monies are used for even personal hygiene items for our adult wards, clothes, toys for our children, but whatever the need is, we can easily identify what that need is and get that need met.
Do you guys network any? I've had Johnny Pridgeon and Dr. Paul Visor on with Sampson Partners. Do you work with groups like that?
Yes, we do, and we appreciate what they do to help. We're able to reach out to them, and when we've again identified a family in need, we're able to. They're a resource for us that we often reach out to, and the need is met. It's whether it's furniture, or whether it's clothes, whether it's I know they deal a lot with families who are burnout victims, but we are able to identify who needs help.
Carlina, you mentioned it was one of the numbers you tossed out, I think was like over 100 maybe children or people that was involved in the program. Of that, when these are folks you know of. These are folks that, so to speak, have been identified. Is that just the tip of the iceberg? Is that a small amount of what's really out there? Is there a large number of people that just are going through the anxiety of food and even need the basic comforts, toothpaste or whatever, and they're not getting it, or it's kind of give us an idea statistically about the numbers that we're looking at, because the COVID world has brought on a change in everything. You know,
Yes,
we
it has.
made assumptions based on what you know, but do you have an idea of what you might not see that you feel like is there?
Well, we do have 109 children in foster care, and that is definitely the tip of the iceberg when you think about the families in the community who may not be involved with Child Protective Services who are in need. Those families who may be just beneath the surface, you know, there's not abuse or neglect going on in the home, but there's vital things that they need. There are families who are maybe a paycheck away from a significant event in their household.
Like somewhere to live.
Exactly, like somewhere to live or food on the table. You know, we think about the children who probably won't have gifts under the tree this Christmas, who are just, you know, just have families just doing the best that they can, and they don't have the extra money to do those types of things. So it's definitely the tip of the iceberg. I'm new to the Sampson community, but I can definitely say that I have seen such a huge outpouring. There's so many kind people in this community, and we are definitely grateful for the calls that we received and the donations and people just checking in, wanting to know how they can help and what they can do. So yes, to answer your question, there's definitely more families in the community who are in need. There are people who reach out to us. You know, we have a hub where people can come and get information for resources in the community. So there's definitely a great need in this area.
So Jane, I'm going to kind of switch back to you. And again, I'm going to pull on your background as supervising Child Protective Services. Give us an idea of why children end up in these kinds of situations. Examples that you've seen where children have to have foster care, children have to go to a group home, children don't have a choice. Not only what causes it, but what can we do as just the average citizen to kind of help either prevent those things or help out to do something to help you guys better do your job?
The issues that I've seen in my 14 years of working in Child Protective Services, and by the way, as far as numbers, only about 10% of what in this county of what Child Protective Services deals with goes to foster care. So that what's in foster care now is about 8 to 10% of what Child Protective Services is actually working with. Substance abuse. We're in the middle of an opioid crisis. Untreated mental health issues. Stress. Stress is a big one. Parents don't mean to neglect and abuse their children. I don't believe. I believe that parent. Rarely have I come across a parent that didn't actually love their child. But circumstances get in the way, and we intervene, and sometimes they end up being taken out of the home because the parent just is not in a place at that moment that they can reel it in or pull it together. So, and foster care does sound like a scary word lots of times to people who don't really understand. Our profession is a very misunderstood. It's very misunderstood. It feels very intrusive for us to go in and remove a child or remove an adult from their living environment, but it's needed and to keep that person safe.
The idea behind a lot of this is, I think, getting folks to recognize, you know, this is what I can do, and a lot of times I think people are willing to give if it's a simple process. So if they call you and say, I want to make a donation, what do you tell them? I mean, on the phone, say somebody calls and says, I want to make a $1,000 donation. Yeah. What do you say? Send a check to this address?
In years past, we've actually had tangible things brought to us, toys, clothes, and things like that. But because of COVID this year, we're only able to receive monetary donations. And people have actually cut checks to us. They bring us gift cards. But yes, both Carlina and I have talked with people on the phone who have called us up directly and asked, how can I give? And that's what we tell them, gift card or money donation.
We're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk a bit about the aging kind of paradigm, what that is, and how it fits with this conversation. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll be back in a moment. Stay tuned.
Many things have been stolen away during this time of uncertainty. No crowds to cheer on their favorite teams. Applause and pageantry have been stripped away. Thieves are looking to make your home empty and silent. Star Communications has the answer you are looking for. Security by Star. Automation and affordability along with friendly service makes for a security choice that is sure to keep your family cheering.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. We Should Know is on there. We're about halfway through with the show today. My name is JW Simmons. Over 10 years now we've been doing We Should Know, and we've been talking about different subjects, different commentaries. The reality is the support you give us, that is contacting us, letting us know what you'd like to hear, maybe some explanation about shows we have. I keep thanking you for that. It's very important to us, and you can reach us at weshouldknowedu@gmail.com. That's weshouldknowedu@gmail.com. Or if you happen to just be one of those folks who likes to drop us a card or a little note or a letter, talking about something you'd like to hear from, you can send that to Post Office Box 1482, Clinton, North Carolina. Today we're talking about children, and to a large degree, ladies, we're talking about one of the most important assets that we've got, and we're fixing to kind of bundle that with something else. We're talking with Carlina Simmons. We're talking with Jane Dudley. Jane, in the first couple of halves of the show, the first half, we talked quite a bit about children, but now I want to kind of bring that to an area that you now have oversight, and that's folks that are aging, everything from rest homes to people that may be aging in the rural landscape. There was something a while back that we discussed on this show, and it was grandparents raising grandchildren. Is that still an issue, and is that a growing issue in that grandparents have just found they have to take on responsibility oftentimes of parents that just leave?
It is an issue, JW, and you'd be surprised, or maybe not, that it's not just grandparents, but sometimes great-grandparents raising their great-grandchildren. It's a growing issue, I think, in this community, and I know in other communities, because of the issues that I mentioned just a few minutes ago: substance abuse, mental health issues, these social problems that parents are dealing with, and for whatever reason, they're not able to parent. And so we want children to stay in their family of origin, and families want their children to stay in their family of origin, and that's why grandparents will oftentimes step up and take on that role.
There was, and I want to read this quote. This is a quote that Ashton Applewhite made, which I think has got to be woven into this conversation. And the quote is, "Aging is not a problem to be fixed or a disease to be cured," she says. "It's a natural, powerful, lifelong process that unites us all." We're dealing with the idea of aging in the sense that folks need or going to need certain things because of physical maladies, because of all kinds of other things that happen naturally. We get that. Part of that is trying to protect people from being violated that's older, that may not be as aggressively defensive. And part of that is just scams. Part of that is maybe being neglected where their medication or what have you. What do you see in this rural landscape that we're in here that folks maybe are missing as it relates to an older person needing someone?
And I think a lot of times we think of the vulnerable as children, and they are, and they should be on the forefront of our minds to protect, but also the elders in our community, and not just elders, but the disabled individuals that are in our community. So my section works with the elders and the disabled adults. If you're 18 and beyond, that falls under my area. And so there are scams that go on. There is abuse that occurs in our community, neglect, whether it be self-neglect, the adult is self-neglecting, or a caregiver that is supposed to be taking care of them is not taking care of them like they should be, not getting them to the doctor, not making sure that the home is clean, and not making sure that their medication is filled. All those things are occurring we investigate abuse and neglect just like we investigate child abuse and neglect here in this county. So there are social workers here in Sampson who receive reports on a daily basis, and they're assigned to go out to do home visits. They go out and speak with the doctors that are involved. They interview family. Family is a tremendous resource for us. When we are investigating a child matter or an adult matter, we are trying to connect with the family. The family is the expert. The family is the expert, not us. We're strangers coming in trying to take a snapshot of what's going on. We need insight from those family members. We go out and interview whomever we need to discuss the matter with, to try to find out what is actually happening here. What is the truth of that's going on here? Are these allegations true or are they not true? What is the need? That's our job, is to identify needs, whether it's in a child matter or an adult matter.
On break, a while ago when we took break, Carlina, we were talking a bit about this idea of social psychology and what all that meant. One of the things that strikes me, and the note that you just hit, Jane, was do we really, as parents, as grandparents, where do we learn? Where is that textbook? Where is that degree that says that we have, quote, been equipped to do the right thing? I mean, the right thing, I think, is the fundamentals we talked about, is safety, food, that kind of thing. But just the idea, of how do we discipline? In the teenage years, now many people in this area will be listening to this show and they'll go, I can't believe JW said that. But the reality is, a lot of folks was brought up with that idea that if you tell a child something and they don't do it, you just whack them a couple of times. Are we moving away from that? Is that kind of idea of discipline still the mainstream? And is there really anything we can do to change it other than try to educate people that there's other ways of doing things besides frailing somebody, I guess?
I think we are moving away from that, evidenced by the fact that we now have agencies and community partners who are dedicated to protecting children. And, our goal is not to go into the home and try to tell parents that what they're doing is wrong. It's our job to show them, okay, maybe you went a little too far with this. Let's work on these techniques, or let's get you in a parenting class, or let's find a resource that can help you kind of look at the situation a little bit differently. So we try to meet families where they are. And I think that as a result, thankfully, we have entities in place now to protect children and protect adults. There was a time where there was nothing in place. So I think that we are moving in a good direction. And I think that our approach is family-based, is family-centered. So I think that Jane brought up a good point earlier when she said that the family is the expert. The families are the experts about their own family. So it's not our job to try to come in and tell them that they're navigating incorrectly. It's our job to help them find better solutions for what they're dealing with.
Jane, and you've got, I guess, so many years in Child Protective Services. I got to ask this question. Do you just have times that you see things and you say to yourself, oh no, this ain't gonna continue. I've got to follow up on this. And you might not even be on the clock.
There have been a time or two that's happened. Normally when I'm off the clock, we're always programmed to look around in our environment and see what's going on. And there have been times when I have just simply walked over to someone and asked them if I could assist them. We're not there to assert our authority, even from 8 to 5. That's not the point of it. But if I've ever seen someone in the community that I felt was in distress and needed assistance, I'll just simply walk over and ask them if they need assistance and explain that if I can help in any way, I'd be glad to. That seems less intrusive than going over and pulling out a badge and saying, I'm a social worker with Child Protective Services, what do you think you're doing?
Yeah.
That's not going to help anybody.
That's more an enforcement, aggressive approach, and that's just not.
And that's not going to change anything. Our goal is to help families reduce stress. Stress is a big factor. We all deal with it. And as I said earlier, parents don't mean to harm their children, and neglect their children. Those things come out of the circumstances that are present in that moment or the overall picture of what they're dealing with. So our job is to help make things better, improve the quality of life, not only for the children, but as Carlina mentioned earlier, for the parent. We're there as well for the parent. The way that we help children is by helping their parents.
And a lot of times our intervention kind of brings about that aha moment to the family. We see a lot of parents who work really, really hard, and they try really, really diligently to correct the issues that have brought us into their lives. Sometimes you need somebody on the outside looking in to say, okay, this isn't okay, this isn't acceptable, but we're going to help you correct this. And we see a lot of families who they'll work with us, they will self-correct. Sometimes they just need that nudge. They just need somebody to step in and say, we understand that this is what you're used to doing, but let us help you show a better way, a more efficient way to handle this.
You go to church. You're a church person, and I am. A lot of folks in this landscape are church people. When you're at church, does people, Carlina, is automatically kind of see you as the kind of the go-to person when it comes to kind of clarifying some of those landscape issues?
Yes, I do get calls from my church. Once people find out what you do, then you kind of become that go-to person. So I do get calls, and I can't speak about any specific cases with a person, but if they have a general question, or what do I do about this, or my mom's getting older, who can I contact, or they usually reach out.
We're gonna take a break. We're gonna be coming up on our last segment when we come back. We've got a lot to cover, and hopefully we can hit those key points. But when we do, I want to let folks know, I'm going to ask you guys, maybe as we come back on, to give those numbers out and contact information. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll be back in a moment. We're talking with Carlina Simmons. We're talking with Jane Dudley, Department of Social Services, about some of the most important things in your life. That's their children.
To get the most out of your electronic devices, you need a strong internet connection and a protected home Wi-Fi network. You need high-speed internet from Star. Star has the fastest, most affordable high-speed internet service available for all your devices. We have no long-term contracts or high-pressure sales. Our service speaks for itself, and switching is hassle-free. We take care of everything with free installation from a local company. High-speed internet from Star. Internet at the speed of life.
Welcome back. Name of the show is We Should Know. Coming up on our last segment here on Star Communications Channel 16, WCLN Radio. We're talking with the Department of Social Services folks today, and Carlina Simmons and Jane Dudley is with us. Ladies, we've talked about a lot of things in the first segments of the show. We've talked about things that folks can do to help as it relates to children, as it relates to folks that are going through issues as they age. They may need some assistance. Jane, you mentioned a couple of things a while ago where folks could actually make donations and help families and basically not have to worry about, I'm going to go out and buy something, or I've got to get food and put it in a container. They can just write a check or give you a credit card number or whatever and make that donation, and you guys will take care of it. You'll handle the process for them. Tell us how they reach you. A simple way obviously would be calling you. What's that phone number, and is there an extension? Because we know they're going to reach a thing, they got to punch some numbers in.
So the main number for DSS is 910-592-4200, and my direct extension is 3354. Carlina, you'll have to tell yours. My
direct extension is 3315.
Okay. Same prefix.
That's
but
right.
They'll have to dial those extensions. Now, highly likely...
Or they can ask for our names, and they'll put the caller to us.
Okay, and highly likely, they're probably going to have to leave a message because you guys are busy underlined 3 times. I mean, you're literally, and I know that because I've called you a couple of times and no way, you know, that I could get in. But one thing I'm sure of, if I leave a message, you will get back with me because we've done that.
That's true. That there are times when folks have to leave a message, but oftentimes, Carlina, we pick the phone right up. We're big on customer service. We want the caller to have their need, or the person in need that walks in off of the street to have their need met, or at least answers to their questions before leaving. That's why Carlina mentioned our hub resource center just a few minutes ago. We may not have that answer right then and there to a caller that's on the phone, but as soon as we're hanging up, we're back on the phone trying to find the answer for them to alleviate their issue.
So Carlina, to your point, and we talked a little bit about this, churches that are listening, folks, church people that are listening, which is a large portion of our population, for those people, if their church is looking at something, how do we do something for our community? How do we help? They could just simply call you and say, hey, we're going to take a collection. It may be $50, maybe $500, maybe $5,000. We're going to take that collection up. Can we give that to you? And they can call you and you can tell them exactly what they need to do.
Absolutely. They can call me. I will answer the phone. They will be speaking with a live person and I can give them the directions they need.
Will you go to churches and do programs? I know that's a odd question in the world of COVID because most likely that's probably not happening. But going forward, if folks would like to ask you to come out and speak to a group of people or speak to their congregation, are you guys willing to do that?
Absolutely. I've been to many churches and given presentations on the services that we offer. I've been to Sampson Community College and spoken to class, daycare, students that are learning, they're in a daycare course or whatever. Even been here and talked with cross-training local law enforcement. That they come and talk with us. We go and talk with them. All one has to do is just invite us, and we'll be there.
Yep, I will be there with bells on.
Let's get back to tying this together again with the aging thing, and we spoke a little bit about it, and you mentioned that you have situations where not only grandparents but great-grandparents are looking after grandchildren. To make it clear, we're not talking about grandparents that may be asked by their children, can you watch little Susie or Johnny for a couple hours? We're not talking about that. We're talking about situations that they have become the sole responsible person for that child, correct?
That's right. We're talking about grandparents or great-grandparents or aunts and uncles, sometimes older siblings of those minor children. It's not just grandparents that are stepping in, but lots of times, that's more likely what we see. But they're providing all the food that child eats. They're providing all of the transportation to a medical appointment. They're providing going to school each morning, helping with homework at night, tucking into bed at night, getting ready to go to church on Sunday morning. Anything that a parent would do, that's what that grandparent or great-grandparent is doing for that child because the parent is absent.
One of the areas I know that you look at as well, and we can't leave out of this conversation, is that whole area of nursing homes, rest homes, and we have a number here in the county. Do you actually go into those facilities, and do you respond to complaints if someone says, well, I was there and I went by this one particular room and there was a person in there that was clearly tied up in a chair and had been sitting there, looked like for 3 or 4 hours, and nobody attended them. Do you get those kinds of calls, and is that something you respond to?
Yes, we monitor many of the family care homes that are in Sampson County, and we actually go to those homes and investigate complaints. As I mentioned earlier, we have a unit that investigates adult abuse and neglect and exploitation, just like there's a section for children services and investigations. So there are times when we go into these facilities, and right now we aren't allowed to go in unless there's a complaint, unless there's an investigation. Pre-COVID, we monitor these facilities as well, but now we can't go in to monitor because of the COVID. But we, by law, we have to go in to investigate a complaint to see if that adult or adults are being cared for appropriately.
The whole term comes to mind as you were saying that this idea of domestic abuse, that would be like in the home where somebody's being abused, either if it's an adult or even in a marital situation where maybe it's a spouse that's being abused. Do you also respond to those as a preventative measure? And at what point in time do you feel, how should I put this, unsafe doing that? Do you feel maybe I need to have somebody else with me, or maybe it's a lot, because I can see that would be a highly volatile environment to walk into. And of course, you know, Carolina, it's like that's children involved in that as well.
Yes.
I mean, it just crosses over here in so many ways.
With our protective services, we're not proactive, we're actually reactive, much like law enforcement is. We can't go out and begin an investigation until we receive that there's an allegation of abuse, neglect, or dependency or exploitation if you're talking about an adult. And we do go out to some pretty dangerous situations. More times than not, we go out alone, because if we drive up and we have law enforcement with us, we're social workers. We're not law enforcement. We're there to try to figure out what the safety concern is and try to fix it, try to help the family fix it.
If law enforcement's with you, it just kind of elevates the tension.
It escalates things.
It's
now,
like,
there's times
whoa.
There are times when we arrive at the home and we realize, okay, we need a little bit heavier oversight than our badge that we wear. And we work very well with our law enforcement. They protect us while we do our job.
And they understand the dynamic of what your responsibility is versus what theirs is.
They do. We deal with the same population, so they understand.
Carlina, we're coming up kind of to the last of the segment, which we're going to have to close the show out. I want to make sure we've covered everything that you need to get out to the public, particularly during this season of the year, as we approach 2021, as we go through the holiday season. Statistically, I read an article that says it seems like everything amps up during the holiday season. It's not like we don't have a whole lot of attention and tension to COVID now, but now we've added the holiday season, which just standing alone increases tension and anxiety. Just speak to that and any other thing you want to say before we have to get out of here.
Well, this time of year it's a joyful time, but it's also a very stressful time. So this is the time of year where we definitely see an uptick in the calls. We see an uptick in drug abuse, domestic violence. People are stressed. People don't have jobs. They don't know what they're gonna do. They may be facing eviction or not having enough food. And unfortunately, it's the children who become the brunt of that stress. So we just want people to keep in mind that this is a time of year where we're gonna be busier than normal. We definitely need foster parents. We need loving homes. We need safe homes for these children. We need a place where they can just rest at night and know that they're gonna be okay.
Okay. Jane, I want to give you a few minutes here, or maybe a minute or so, to just kind of wrap it up for us, kind of bring this together and cover anything that we might have missed, because I know you got to get those repetitive calls asking the same thing. If there's something in that arena that you want to touch on, you got about a minute.
There's so many things that we could sit here and just continue for hours to talk about. But I just would like for the community to know that if they have a need, food insecurity, transportation issues, COVID-related questions, there are programs that we know about that could potentially help that individual. Call us. They'll be connected to a social worker. They'll be connected to our Hub Resource Center, and we can kind of triage that situation and use the knowledge that we have to try to address that need. The other thing I'd like to say is that it's not just a DSS problem, it's a community problem. It's not just these social issues that we have, these matters that have come up, these stresses that people have. It's not just DSS's responsibility to address and acknowledge and respond to. The community has a responsibility to care about these children and about these elders, who many of these elders were once business owners. They were once your barber. They were once nurses that cared for you when you were in the hospital. It's good for people to understand that it's not just the government that these folks depend on. It's actually the community that they've served.
And I think with that said, it just seems to me that if somebody's back to that old saying that we've heard for several years now, if you see something, say something. So I want to thank both you guys for being with us, taking time to come in and sit down in what is one of the busiest times of the year for you. And certainly you have our compassion, and we will ask people to follow those numbers and call you. So, ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you for being with us today. We look forward to seeing you again next week. And each and every week, hopefully bringing you information that'll be helpful to you, your family, and the community. And as always, as we close, we look at you and say, may God bless.
Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of We Should Know with host JW Simmons. If you have a question, comment, or suggestion regarding this or any episode, please send your emails to weshouldknowedu@gmail.com. And remember to tune in every Tuesday at 2:30 for another informative episode of We Should Know.